Hello developers, writers, and everyone who loves game design.
Welcome to DLC Not Included, our weekly podcast where we discuss game development, the industry, and everything in between.
We're your hosts, Steele
and Teal. Glad you could join us.
All right, so we're now on the 7th episode of the first season of the revival of our podcast.
This is exciting.
It really is. For those of you who are watching live, please remember we're not monitoring chat, but we will be queuing questions. So use the podcast question channel point selection.
Yes.
It's very cheap, only 15 minutes of watching to ask your questions. All right, so we've gone over a number of topics. We've gone over selecting a game engine, testing your game, etc., etc., etc. But now we're going to talk about something that kind of wraps up that part.
Publishing your game.
So, like everything in the game industry, there is no one standard to publishing. Even the AAA industry relies upon the same methods that indie developers will use. There's a lot of leeway.
Yes, because there's only so many marketing channels.
Exactly.
Also, I just want to point out, it's not about how to publish your game that matters, but how you publish your particular game. Project to project, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you have to grow with each game that you make. So today we're going to go over the options a developer has when publishing.
Right. And since we're probably talking mostly to developers are the main listeners of our podcast, what actually differs between developing and publishing as far as skill sets go? In short, everything. It's literally two different skill sets. The skill set for developing is completely different than the skill set for publishing, marketing, etc. Sometimes some of those best developed games, like some of the games that just kick butt, wonderful games, absolutely amazing games, well, they'll fail in sales, won't they?
Yes, they will, because they didn't have proper marketing, or they weren't published according to a specific timeline.
Right. Or the distribution channels choked, etc.
Right. And that can happen.
Yeah. We do want to point out that that is not the fault of the developers.
No.
The developers should not be blamed, especially in the AAA industry.
And
in general, we try not to blame developers of indie games.
No, we don't.
They have a massively expansive set of skills that they have to tap into. And that's specifically geared towards game creation. Like, to be a good game developer, you have to be a writer, you have to be a mapper, a graphics designer, an audio engineer, a coder, a tester. Especially nowadays with one-man shops and small studios, you're wearing multiple hats.
Right. And given that, it's a lot to ask of a developer to also understand the nuances of marketing and consumer outreach, customer service, maybe even player community development.
All those little things that you have to do after your game has gone gold in order for your game to sell properly, be well received, etc., etc., etc. I feel like I'm Yul Brynner, etc., etc., etc.
Well, the point I was trying to make is that developers aren't usually the best people to interface with the public at large.
Right. It's not their skill set, too.
No, it's not.
And that's not to say that developers can't have people skills. Some of the most charismatic and personal people that you and I know are also developers.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of the absolutely amazing YouTubers we're friends with.
Yes.
Drifty, Hawk Zombie. They ooze charisma. So just because of that doesn't necessarily mean that they're, not fit for interfacing with the public. It just means in general that the skill set needed to interface with your consumers is a very specific skill set,
which is different than developing. So,
or streaming to people,
or streaming,
or just chatting and being a friend. When you're developing your game, you're very insular. You're in your creative space. But when you're publishing out, when you're reaching out to your fan base, not your fan base, your customer base. You have to have a certain set of customer service skills that may be difficult. But that's not even like the tip of it. You also have to have skills on publishing your game properly, marketing that game out to people, following up with that, building up a rapport of a customer base prior to launch.
Boy, that's a skill set right there.
If we're intimidating you guys listening in this podcast, we apologize. But there are people who go to school and spend a very long time learning specifically how to market.
Yep.
And they're constantly learning their entire careers. the point is this. It is absolutely difficult, 100%, to be a developer and a publisher and a promoter and a marketer and be successful at everything.
Yeah, you're going to be burned out.
It is.
I can tell you that.
So can a self-published game make it big?
Yes, absolutely. Self-published games can make it big, but unfortunately, that's the exception, not the rule.
It really is. It really
For
is.
every Minecraft and Broken Age, you're going to have countless games that just fade into obscurity.
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
It is. Just an FYI to our live chat, we'll hit the podcast questions at the end of the podcast, but please make sure you ask them right away or hold them. Anyway, so yeah, there are so many games that just don't make it.
Right.
And they're amazing games that are so much fun. You know, an indie developer, if they're really, really, really lucky, will have a very popular YouTuber like Markiplier or Jacksepticeye or PewDiePie pick up their game, and their game will all of a sudden rocket in sales. You know, or their game will hit upon the right market at the right time, like Phasmophobia or Among Us.
Or Fall
Guys. And suddenly, but that doesn't happen often.
No, it's not. Often. So as a result, let's just say you as a developer, you can end up burning many more hours campaigning about your game, tweeting it on social media, posting notices of being on sale, and you might never make a single sale.
Never.
You know?
And that's got to be extremely disheartening.
Yeah.
When you put forth innumerable amounts of effort, innumerable amounts, and you never, ever, ever see a single sale. And we know a lot of developers who we're friends with, those in the different communities, Unreal, RPG Maker, who they put a lot of effort in, and you can tell.
Yes.
Both the game and the market. They try their hardest, and it doesn't work. And it's, again, we're not trying to dishearten you. We're laying the groundwork for those listening to this. We're laying the groundwork because there are things that you can do. We're not going to go so much into techniques as options today.
Just options, right?
Because we could do an entire podcast.
Because techniques and those are classes.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, as Steele said, there are entire classes on Mark Strat and promotions and that sort of thing. But what we're trying to do today is give you ideas and options.
Right. Because the exact minutia of marketing is really its own topic.
Yeah.
You know, maybe one day we'll do a podcast on it, but more than likely it's a classroom.
Yeah.
All right.
But what we just want to say is for you indie developers, to successfully self-publish your game, it does require a very specialized skill set. And we know that many of you don't have that.
Right.
And that's okay.
So we're going to talk instead about the options you as a indie developer have when you're attempting to get your game out to get it published that you may not have considered.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've also noticed while we were busy preparing for this podcast is that there's actually a massive dearth of PR companies, public relation companies out there that focus solely on the indie game industry. You have PR companies that focus on books.
I know.
PR companies that focus on indie films. You know, PR, a lot of everything. You know,
just everything.
Indie musicians have massive numbers of PR companies to pull from, but the game industry, very few, if any. And these are companies that would things like relationship manage. That's you know, hey, someone gave me a bad review. Okay, how can we fix that review?
Right.
Work on marketing campaigns, which we literally have gone over into exhaustion.
Oh yeah.
Act as a go-between between the player and the developer, because some developers need not do the interfacing.
Right.
Let them focus on their game.
Just focus on working on your game. Yeah.
Something like that would really help, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. And if I had the bandwidth, I'd jump in there and do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And if any PR firms are listening out there, here's an opportunity for a new marketing segment. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Y'all would make a lot of money. The PR company that comes in specifically to help indie developers and is the first and hits the ground strong, they're going to make a lot of money. So, you know, hey, right? Heads up. Okay, so, but let's actually talk about ways you can publish your game, because most indie developers think it's just a matter of uploading it to itch.io or Steam, pressing a button, and praying. There's other things you can do. But the first is self-publishing.
Yes.
That is self-publishing. Writers have been doing it forever.
Forever, yes.
It is literally the easiest and cheapest way. It doesn't mean it's the least effective, but it is a way to do it. And we're talking different platforms, right?
Right. I mean, there's various platforms you can use to self-publish, like Steam, GOG, Jolt, itch.io.
Many others.
Some are free, some are going to require a fee.
Right. I think like with Steam, it's $100 per game.
I think so.
But once you reach 1,000 in sales, you get that back.
Right.
So there's an incentive to be successful, but at the same time, you got to be successful.
Right.
There are a lot of others.
So self-publishing is really neat because you get complete creative control. Okay, you're only kept in check by the guidelines of the particular distribution network.
Which, if you've ever published anything on Steam or seen anything published on Steam, you know their guidelines are pretty loosey-goosey. So you basically get, hey, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and, you're just going to let me publish my game.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of that creative control. However, what's the downside, Teal?
Well, because you are solely responsible for marketing and consumer relations, it's all on you.
It is.
To promote.
Is all on you.
Yeah.
All on you. You may want to also consider outside of just posting a lots on the internets.
Yes.
Pandemic aside, you may want to consider going to like conventions and trade shows. So you could have like your booth, here's my indie game that's in development, or here's my indie game that's gone gold 3 weeks ago. Check it out. Play the free demo. Get the free swag. There's a reason that people go to those shows.
Yeah.
It's to market their game, but it's also to try to get the attention of someone bigger who could push them harder.
That's right.
It takes money to market something. It takes money to promote something. And unless you have it, you're going to be relying on word of mouth.
Which only gets you so far in today's marketplace.
Yeah, unless you are one of those lucky Minecraft Broken Age Among Us Phasmophobia storylines where the right person notices you and you skyrocket into fame. But that's not the only option. Let's talk about the other one that people pretty much think of as well and think is way beyond their reach.
Right, that's third-party publishing.
Working with a publisher.
Yeah, because there are publishers out there who do look at indie developers. Okay, you just have to know where to find them.
Right, you're going to have smaller companies like Jabub Games, and they may be more willing than a bigger publisher like Ubisoft.
Right.
Ubisoft will look at indie developers, but you have to have an established name. You have to have an established track record. Ubisoft has to think, hey, this developer makes great stuff.
Right.
It's stuff that's popular. They have a growing, marketable fan base that we can cultivate and get even bigger. Let's go ahead and throw a couple of $100,000 at the marketing of their game and see if we can't get it out in front of people.
Yeah.
So that's possible.
Because Ubisoft is going to look at you and your work as an investment.
Right.
So they want to know what the ROI is on that.
And we just picked Ubisoft because Ubisoft does that. But a lot of the companies, Blizzard Interactive did stuff at one point. I don't know if they still do.
I don't know.
But, when we were preparing for this podcast, we were looking and seeing how the rules there are kind of in flux, and a lot of publishers are kind of retrenching while others are expanding out. And that in itself is its own host of problems because companies, especially publishers, are constantly changing their own internal rules.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. It's like
in response to the market.
It is just like things like Random Penguin, Random House Penguin.
Random House Penguin.
Yeah. It's those book publishers either are suddenly accepting 1,000 queries or 0 queries. And
right.
You can't know when that's going to happen. So you have to sometimes it's luck.
Yeah.
But all of this is not the rules. We don't actually speak for the publishers. So everything we just mentioned is up to them, not to Studio Blue. But the onus is not on the publisher, is it?
No, it's on you.
Yeah.
You have to get their attention. Yeah. You have to attract them, get them interested in what you do and in publishing your work.
That's right.
So again, you're out there basically busking for for contacts.
It's the indie developer version of querying. You're going to have to go to trade shows. You're going to have to go to E3. You're going to have to go to PAX.
Yes, you are.
You're going to have to go to all of these things. Hope that you have a very strong vertical slice. Aren't we always preaching that? The vertical slice? Super important. So that when you go to the bar and you talk to that EA executive
who's just there having a rum and coke.
Right. And
I'm just guessing that EA executives drink rum and coke.
And he says, yeah, I'll look at your vertical slice. You'll whip out your laptop. Please whip out your laptop. Start the the vertical slice up, you have 5 seconds to catch their attention and 5 minutes to hold it. And they'll go, yeah, that's fine. Hey, here's my business card. Send me an email. Remind me you're that guy with the haircut.
Right.
Or I'll have my concierge contact you. And then hopefully it'll go somewhere.
Right.
But that is so much busy work. And when you get it, when you get that third-party publishing contract, you're not coasting just yet.
No, you have to follow all of their guidelines.
All of them.
You've got to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Give them a percentage of your success, okay, because they're going to want their cut.
They want their cut.
And so, that's why because of all that.
Yeah, you got to be very, very careful because in a way, you're kind of signing a part of your creative vision away.
Yeah.
However, there's the payoff. And again, anyone out there who's ever published a book, whether it be through a press or self-published, knows you give that publishing house a little bit of your creative, a piece of your creative soul in return for their money pushing your work forward. It's the exact same in the electronic publishing industry. There's zero difference. And
you've got a much bigger support system with a publishing house, both monetarily and resource-wise. You've got a huge support system there. And so I just want to point this out. This is an important point. I don't want us to miss it.
Okay, what's that?
Okay. I know that you want to have a publisher, right? You're out there busting for it. But make sure that you vet that publisher, okay? Because not every publisher is going to have your best interest at heart.
Right.
Not every publisher is truly positioned to market your particular work.
Right. That may not be the right publisher for you, even though it's a publisher that has said we're interested in you.
Exactly.
Because the inverse is absolutely true. They're going to be vetting you.
Oh, of course they are.
They're going to be vetting you when they talk to you. Your interview starts the moment you say hi. Yes,
please remember that. Yes.
So they're going to look at you. Are you the kind of personality that they want to work with? Are you someone who they wouldn't mind putting in front of, an interviewer like a Gamma Sutra or something? Would they mind you bringing a piece of yourself with their name to the general public? Or are they going to go, no? Do they like your game concepts and the direction of your studio, the ebb and flow of your different game projects? Or are they going to go, well, while this one project is interesting us, as other things that they have aren't really what we do. Yeah. And it may not even be a negative against you. How many times has a budding author, a dreaming author, sent out a query letter, and the agent has looked at the query letter and said, this book is amazing, but it's not the kind of thing I can publish. Yeah. That happens all the time. So it is a vetting process on both sides. Having said all that, there's a third option. There is. And this is an option Teal and I were not even aware existed until we were preparing for this podcast because it's unbelievably new. What is it? I can't believe it, but it's called co-production. Yeah. And co-production is a hybrid of self-publishing and third-party. Yeah, it's a concept where the publisher offers resources to the developer to assist with publishing and marketing, but the developer still maintains a majority of control. And here's the thing. I've heard of co-production because it's been used in the film industry for decades. Yeah, it's a film thing. Right. I didn't realize it now become a game thing. Neither did I. That was the thing, is it's used in the indie film industry quite a bit. All the time a director will go to these co-production companies and they'll say, yeah, okay, so we love your script. Yeah. We love your demo footage. Let's go ahead. Here's our contract. You're responsible for the majority of your stuff. However, we're going to throw marketing and production money at you to, help you get your stuff out on the circuit, on the indie film circuit. Yeah. And if there's a huge ROI, then everybody makes the money. Absolutely. If there's not, it's a minimal loss. Yeah. So the video game industry is starting to do that. The guidelines are so much more lax. There's an emphasis on both the developer and the publisher sharing the load. It's kind of a magical thing, and the developer gets stuff too. Yeah, the developer gets access to all the marketing and distribution channels of the publisher. Okay, but the publisher doesn't have to take on the sole responsibility of the outreach and marketing. Right. So the two would work together. They work together. It is it's a co-op. It's really what it is. It's a co-production. Both can thrive. and both have to do their sides of the job, though. That's the thing, is
Yeah.
it's not like if you go with a third-party publisher, you develop the shit out of your game, you test it, you get it ready, you send it to the publisher QAs it. If they like it, they send it out. You as the developer sit back, smoke your cigar, drink your coffee, watch the reviews come in, and get ready to do your next project. With a co-production, with a co-op, you're still doing work.
Oh, yeah.
You're still working.
You're going to those trade shows, buddy.
Yeah, but you're not doing as much as if you were doing it by yourself.
Right.
So it's
they'll buy the booth for you.
Yeah.
They will. They'll get the table for you. But your little butt is up there hawking your wares.
Now, of course, that's a for instance. We've never actually co-produced.
No, we've never co-produced. This is something new.
But knowing what we know, it would be an equal share.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a new concept here in the game industry. We actually could not find any US-based companies that do this. The ones that we found are in Europe.
Yeah.
I'm sure they exist, and I'm sure they will exist, and hopefully in the future that'll be a regular thing, these co-production companies being out there.
Yeah.
But for the moment, it's a very new part of the game industry, and we urge the developers who are listening to consider that. Self-publishing your game? Yeah, absolutely. All the creative control in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Third-party publishing, if you can get that third-party contract and it gives you all the little pieces, parts you want, follow that dream.
Yeah,
Make
do
that
it.
big, huge Minecraft money. But if the two don't sound so good and those co-production companies start showing up in the U.S., we kind of recommend that.
That's a good option.
Yeah.
But anyway, that gets us down to what method should we use?
What is it? So, What is the best method for you?
Well, guess what? There's no one answer for all.
No.
Okay. It is truly a case-by-case basis.
And honestly,
what will work for indie developer A, self-publishing, won't work for developer B, who would benefit much better from going for the publishing big house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the question actually shouldn't be what method should you use. There's a more important question, and this is what each developer has to look inside themselves, and this is the crux of this podcast. You need to sit back, kind of momentarily divorce yourself from the desire to get your project out, and look inside and answer this. What do you, the developer, want to be in the video game industry?
If you just want to create games without really a care of who plays them, then there's no reason to do anything other than self-publish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you are more determined than ever, if the most important thing to you, if the priority is that you create the game you want to create, and that takes precedence over everything else, be a self-publisher.
Mm-hmm.
Be a self-publisher. You may get just your friends or the people in your community to play your game. You may get the people who are on your Discord server to play your game, and that's it. But you have full creative control.
Mm-hmm.
It is your game. No one can touch it.
Yeah.
If you want total
autonomy.
Total autonomy. That's it, basically. You answer to no one but yourself. That is the best one right there.
Yeah. But if you're willing to work with another entity regarding your game project,
right?
Okay, if you want to bring on someone who may or may not have some sort of say in it, then you may want to consider a publisher.
Yeah.
Okay, think of it like a relationship. Some give and take here.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you willing to do the process of queuing? I'm calling it queuing because of the book industry, but it's basically reaching out, contacting, trying to get someone to send you a publishing contract.
Right.
So if you're willing to do all of that, that might be the way to go. Go that third-party route. It's going to require a lot of work, but at some point, or co-oping. Co-oping would work too, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but if you want to be more than just a developer,
right?
Okay, if you want to grow in this industry, both from a production standpoint, game creation,
right,
and renown standpoint, then you probably want to look at finding a publisher.
So even more so than what we just said, if you want to be a voice, a face of the industry, if you want to be a heavy part of the industry where you are known as, blank, a developer,
right,
then you really want to go third party. To that point, it's more important that you're involved in the industry itself,
yes,
than just making your games. And this is assuming, of course, that you want to increase your outreach beyond your development community. If you don't care, then it's really not consideration. Go self-publishing or co-production. Quick side tangent, Teal.
Okay.
Many amateur developers don't like moving outside of the comfort zone. And to all the developers out there who are part of a community, I apologize, but I'm literally about to call you out. If you're just not comfortable with moving outside of the comfort zone of your immediate community, and you only self-publish for your immediate community, you're going to be considered an amateur by everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a negative thing, but just be seen. You will be seen as an amateur game developer if you just stay within your small community, because you're not making the game for the public.
Right. You're making it for your own creativity, your own creative self, and for your friends.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, there isn't.
Nothing wrong with it. Know who you are. And when you sit back and ask
know who you are.
When you ask that question, if that's the answer, that's okay. Self-publish, publish out for your community, for your friends, and that's all right.
Yeah.
Cycling back to earlier, the other most important thing is to think about the creative control. How much creative control do you want?
Creative control.
Yeah.
That's a big issue, actually.
It really is. It really is. Small publishers aren't as restrictive as big ones.
Yeah, no kidding.
But they're still going to have some sort of guidelines as to what they will and will not publish. You're not going to get your turn-based RPG published by a sports company.
No.
It's just not going to happen. Even if your best buds are, the CEO, it's just not going to happen. They're going to go look at it and go, this is a fantastic game. We can't publish it. Just like if you have this wonderful horror novel that you try to shop to a fantasy publishing house. They're going to go, this is an amazing horror novel. We can't publish it. So there's going to be some restrictions there.
Well, there has to be, because if you come across a small publisher that just publishes everything, then first of all, they're not going to be focusing on any kind of successful marketing or outreach. That's first. Second, they're going to have crap with diamonds, and their reputation is going to be crap.
Yeah.
With some diamonds.
Yeah.
And do you really want to be in with all that?
You want to tie your name to that?
You want to tie your name to that? Probably not. Yeah. So that's why, vetting is so important.
Very important.
You want to stay away from publishers that will just take anything.
Yeah. If a publisher sits there, adjusts their tie, smiles, and goes, our company takes everything, and that's what makes us awesome, it actually probably doesn't.
No.
Now, there's not to say there's not a publisher out there that's amazing and does that, but we haven't encountered that.
I haven't encountered one yet.
And we'd be really wary of a publisher, especially a small one, that claims they can successfully publish any type of game. We would say vet them very carefully and get ready to run.
Yeah.
Now, the larger the publisher...
No, let's talk about the big ones, the big boys.
Yeah. Now, the problem,
go ahead.
The problem is the larger the publisher, the smaller the developer, the more guidelines you're going to have to follow. You're not Hideo Kojima. You're not David Cage.
Yeah.
If you get that Ubisoft publishing contract and, you're a small or solo dev, they're gonna pretty much tell you what you can and cannot do.
Yeah, they are. Because they haven't... That trust hasn't been built yet.
Yeah.
They don't have any reason to trust that you're going to go out there and make them the next Minecraft.
Reminds me of the movie Amadeus.
Oh, yeah.
Where Wolfgang Mozart Amadeus, he would just literally say, "It's great because I made it." Well, you can't do that in this industry. If no one knows who you are and you say it's going to be great because it's going to be great, you're going to get laughed right out of the boardroom. Pretty
much.
And if you're not willing to play ball, then your only route may be to self-publish. So there's a lot that we just kind of went down.
Yeah.
There's a lot. So let's kind of titrate that down into a Studio Blue quote. All right. So everything we just talked about what method's important to you, just consider this quote as a summarization. What's more important? That your game gets made or that your game gets played?
That's it.
That's it. So that's what you have to decide when you are a developer.
Yes.
What do you want from the industry, and what's more important, the games created on your terms or the games played by the world?
So there it is.
Start getting your questions ready, guys. I want to kind of go on a little quick sidebar of something that we found while we were preparing this podcast.
Yes, this is a great resource we found.
So there's a book specifically on game publishing geared towards the indie publisher.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and I will post the link to our live chat at the conclusion of this podcast. It'll be in the summary as well as the description of the podcast when it goes out. You get it on Amazon.
But it's called The Publishing Challenge for Independent Video Game Developers, a Practical Guide, and it's by Odile Limpak.
Yep. So we will make sure Odile Limpak has worked in the industry longer than both of us combined and change.
Yes.
I think it's like 2 decades. It's a while.
It's a long time.
And she wrote a book that we found pretty good. You can rent it for Kindle relatively cheap. I think it's a little more expensive if you want a paper copy. But we'll go ahead and post the link.
We'll post the link. Yeah. It's a very, very good read.
Yeah, it's a good read. So now it's time for us to take questions from our live audience.
If you've been watching, remember to use the poll question feature in chat.
All right, so we have a couple of things. First is from Hawk Zombie. All right, so Hawk Zombie says, I can attest 100% to this conversation. I live stream and develop my game live. Yeah, he live streamed the development of his game.
Yes, he did.
But when it came to publishing and marketing, he dropped the ball because he became overwhelmed with several different avenues. Yes.
Yes.
So, this is something that every indie game developer runs into. Unless they have a marketing background, which is rare. They're going to be like, holy shit, there's so much to it. You really think it's just uploading your game, pressing a button, and people come and play your game. Then you start going into, the tweeting you have to do, the social media campaigns, the relationship building, buying ad space, buying banner space. It's absolutely overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. There's so much that you've got to do to get your name out there, promote yourself, and convince people, play my game.
You with your concentration was in marketing.
Yes.
One of your concentrations. Can you attest, Teal, that you literally need a person to handle that, or you need to crash course yourself and you'll never come close to it?
Crash coursing is just, I guess, a quick and dirty way to get started. You really need a dedicated person. Yeah. This person is going to be monitoring, and I say 24/7 in air quotes because, obviously one person can't. But let me tell you, it's more than just your local market. You've got to reach out globally. Yeah. And tweets and posts and comments, they come in all the time.
Yeah.
And you have to have somebody jump on it within an hour of it coming up, of it being posted.
Yeah.
And getting into, especially, and this is probably a separate topic of a negative advertising, negative.
You're talking about
negative reviews, that sort of thing.
Relationship management.
Yeah. So relationship management and social media management, promoting. That's all. That is a full-time job. It really is. It is. And it's not just all done behind your desk at a computer either. As we said before, trade shows. And conventions, face-to-face, getting out there. People match a face to your name to the game.
There's a reason why multi-million-dollar companies like EA, Bethesda, Blizzard, etc., throw out insane amounts of money for E3, even though their games are very well known, because you still have to get it out somehow. Yeah. Marketing has not changed. It's just grown and evolved.
E3 has a lot of cameras.
Yes.
And you've got to get in front of those cameras.
That's right. So good question. Good question, Hawk Zombie.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is from Rack. Can you use multiple methods, self, co-op, company, etc., publishing, if the contract allows it?
If your publishing contract allows you to do a self-publishing or go with another third party, sure, but I doubt it very seriously.
Same here. Generally speaking, and I'll give you my experience in the authoring industry, the book industry. Generally speaking, they'll allow you to diversify for different book projects. Like one book here might be big six publishing or big five.
Yeah.
One might be small press, one might be self-pub, one might be EPUB, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're different books, and they'll allow that much, much, much more than combining the two.
Yeah.
The game industry is the same way. If you have that Ubisoft contract, there's probably an exclusivity clause. And if you're new, good luck on getting that removed. Heck, if you're Hideo Kojima, good luck on getting that removed.
Mm-hmm.
So, to answer your question succinctly, Rack, you probably won't be able to.
No, I don't think you will.
99.9%.
I just don't think so. Yeah.
But good question. Good question. Okay, we have a question here from Burke.
Okay.
If anyone else has questions, make sure to pop them out. Okay, Burke is asking. Could you ask that one?
Yeah. How strong do you feel the media presence of the developer can be related to the marketing and publishing? Would you consider the epic deals with indie games for exclusivity to be harmful for a developer's reputation or to be rather inconsequential in the long run?
That's a two-part question.
It is.
So let's tackle the first part first. The media presence of the developer in relation to marketing and publishing. If I'm understanding that properly, the more marketable the developer, the more you can get them in front of a camera, or an interview in front of a journalist, the better. 100%.
There is a strong relationship between a developer's media presence and the success of a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can state it any plainer than that. If you got a really strong media presence, you interview very well, you look good on camera, on the promo materials. Wow. Yeah, it's gonna be really easy to market you and your work to be published and seen by a lot of people.
Let's talk about somebody who Teal and I like to pick on, but in all honesty, I respect this man's marketability. Todd Howard from Bethesda.
Yeah.
Todd Howard has an aesthetic about him that is unbelievably amazing. And there's no question in our minds when we look at him that there was a very valid reason why he was made the creative director at Bethesda.
Right.
The man was made for being in front of a camera and interviewing. And that right there sells their games regardless of the problems that Bethesda has had these past couple of years. We rag on them a lot, but we respect the fact that they got the right guy.
They did. They had the right guy in front of the camera. So, yeah.
So your marketability is as important as your game's marketability.
Yes.
So second part of the question, would you consider the epic deals with indie games for exclusivity to be harmful for a developer's reputation or to be inconsequential in the long run? So exclusivity clauses are common in this industry.
Yeah, they're very common, and honestly, it's at this point I can safely say that this is a non-issue. You when you sign a contract, you're signing a contract with that publisher. Yeah. You're not going to be doing work for any other publisher.
Right.
You're not.
And if, let's say with Epic, like for example, they buy the publishing rights to your game, and your game is going to get put up on their marketplace and pushed, as well as your assets getting pushed on the marketplace, assuming you've agreed to it, for other developers, you are going to get a lot of exposure. And even though your stuff may be used by other people as a starting point, et cetera, the amount of exposure you're going to get and the amount of sales that not only that game, but other games that you make are going to get, I agree with Teal. In the long run, it's inconsequential. But it goes down to that kind of quote we made. What's more important, that your game gets made or it gets played?
Right.
If it's more important to you that your game gets played, sacrifice a part of that. It's what they say, selling your soul to the big publisher. But it's true.
It is true. And this industry is a business.
It is.
Like any other industry. Yeah. Making games is a business.
Right.
And that you guys, you have to decide, do you want to be in the business or do you just want to make a game?
Yeah.
For the love.
And please understand, there's no wrong answer. If you're an indie developer here who's been slaving away at your dream game for the past X number of months, years, and you're listening to this and going, I don't really want to do all that. I just want to make my game so I can tell my story. There is nothing
Perfect.
wrong.
Yes. Because I love playing those games.
Yeah.
I love playing games where a lot of heart and ideas and creativity were put into them.
And you can tell when a game has the pathos and the soul of the developer inside of it. And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
However,
what an experience.
However, if you look at yourself in the mirror and say, no, it's more important that my game is the next cover of GameStop magazine, you really need to shift your priorities and go more of what is it going to take to get my game in the hands of a publisher who has millions of dollars to push it. These have been very good questions, and while this particular podcast has kind of been all over the place, it's because of the sheer complexity of this topic. This is massively big.
It is, because you're tying in game development with a business model.
Yeah.
And that's actually, it's not an easy thing. It sounds easy, especially when I pitch it, but it is, we're talking about taking two different animals and marrying them together in a way.
And so, this was a absolute beast to research, and was a beast to deliver this podcast.
But I really hope that you guys get a good takeaway from this. If nothing else, you decide where you want to position yourself.
Yeah. And wherever you go, we Studio Blue will respect you as long as you are true to yourself. Yeah.
Just put out a good game, guys. At the end of the day, it's about the games that we play.
Yeah.
What am I choosing to play?
Right.
To spend my time with.
Exactly.
So yeah.
This has been a good one. We want to thank you guys once again for listening.
Yes.
This will go out to Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, etc. relatively soon. Our supporters, of course, get it 72 hours in advance. We want to thank you guys, whether you be in the live audience or listening to us on the VOD. So join us next time for DLC Not Included. And remember,
anyone can give you the key, but you have to go through the door.